throw one more thing in there about agents, and that is a lot of people fail in the real estate business. So it's very important how you treat other agents, because those people could end up being clients, or they could end up referring business to you.
Because the management and transparency is what's very important. So once you submit a referral, you're going to have your own Home Advantage account, and it's going to tell you where everything sits. So if you have 10 referrals that you've sent into the network, it's going to give you all 10 referrals. It's going to tell you every milestone that that client is sitting in, whether they're touring homes, whether they're in escrow. And you now can manage through the Home Advantage application as far as what your pipeline looks like for the referrals that you've sent. And so it's pretty sophisticated, and it's all click of a button, guys.
Good afternoon, everybody. Took us a little bit of time, technical difficulties to get this rolling today, so sorry about that. But it's our first one of these ahead of the curve webinars that we've done since the first of the year. So it's myself and Saul today. We might have Keri joining us hopefully in a little bit. But Saul, before this all started, you and I were just having a conversation about some big things going on in the national news that affects real estate. Some things that are definitely happened. Some of the things that are rumored to happen. I thought that was an interesting, place we could start. And, following what's going on, just to introduce this one topic, following what's been going on in terms of buyer's agency compensation, and how the DOJ has been involved in this and where this might lead. I would love to start with that topic because I think it's getting closer. Like the clock is ticking down until something is either going to or not going to happen with this. So, Saul, I know you had some points you want to cover in this, so why don't you take it away to start?
Yeah, well, great, Mike. Great to see you. Great to be back. Happy New Year to everybody. So we're talking about being ahead of the curve, and so I think it's important that we're ahead of the curve, and we help people be ahead of the curve on exactly what's going on. So big news, headline news. The National Association of Realtors, it looks like, right? The National Association got a big win. This is how it's being promoted against the Department of Justice. Now, first, people need to know that the Department of Justice has been after realtors and NAR since I got into real estate. So I'm talking about back in the 70s and 80s. This is an ongoing battle. There's a whole history of this. And lately, wasn't that
back when you showed houses with horse and buggy? Oh, not those days.
Yeah. That's when we had telephones. That's when we used real telephones, right? And really. So if you take a look at this, and this is an important thing for people to know, there's two tracks here. One track is an antitrust track with the Department of Justice and NAR. Another track are civil lawsuits where buyers are suing players in the industry. So the first thing to understand is there's two completely separate tracks. One is antitrust in the Department of Justice. The other one has got some antitrust implications, but what it really is are consumers, buyers suing the National Association of Realtors, the MLSs, the big brokerage firms. So two different things. And the thing that got handed down was the National Association of Realtors, which they typically do, they do a great job of settling. Whenever the Department of Justice comes in and sues the National Association, they got great legal teams and they settle and they come up with a settlement. And so a settlement had been reached over showing and marketing of listings, clear cooperation policy, and then a new administration came in. And when the new administration came in, they said, we're not bound by what the old administration and Department of Justice was doing. So we're going to pull back that settlement. And so the National Association of Realtors said, wait a minute, a deal's a deal. You can't do that. And they fought. And that was the win, where a court said, whether or not it's right, and it's probably going to get appealed, but what this latest court said is, hey, Department of Justice, you had a settlement and you just can't walk away from that. And that was seen as a win for NAR. So that's
I like to comment on this too, Saul, that let's face it, it's not every day you're seeing settlements be reached that somebody walks that back, the Department of Justice would walk that back. I mean, that's not that it's never happened before, perhaps, but that is not standard operating procedure. So I wanted to point that out as well. So it's not like this happens in every court case, whether it be Department of Justice or a class action, with civil private entities. You don't usually see settlements happen, get reached, and then they say, whoa, we're taking that off the table again. That's rare.
Exactly. So that was a big piece of news. So if everybody that thinks, well, now this has all gone away, it hasn't all gone away. It was just this latest step which is a victory for NAR, but it's not a final victory. And you still got the civil litigation going on, and you can bet the Department of Justice is probably going to appeal this. So that was the one thing we wanted to talk about. And without getting into too much detail about where might it go with buyer-broker agreements, because we all know that's a whole path. We could spend days talking about that.
But a little summary, because not everybody's following this, especially not everybody, following closely. When we're talking about civil lawsuits too, and we're talking certified as class, we're not talking about one or two individuals. We're talking about large class action, certified class action lawsuits, which gets into very big settlements, or if they don't settle, it goes to court. You're talking some very big losses if they lose. So I mean, this is not an easy little deal.
Absolutely. So put aside the DOJ decision, right? And so the other decision is a case has been augmented. It started out as a Moeller, and there were several copycat cases where a buyer said, you know what? I didn't have the opportunity to negotiate my commission. No one ever said to me that I could negotiate my commission. And the reason was because the MLS has a broker compensation rule. And so the buyer claims that they didn't have the right. And then you're right. What happened is other buyers joined and they got class action certification. So that makes this a big deal.
Or the seller would say, conversely to that, wait a second, why am I being expected that I have to pay a buyer's broker? They should be paying their own. And how many other sellers out there across the history of selling houses have felt like they've been pressured into paying somebody else's compensation, especially one that the buyer themselves doesn't even negotiate on their own? It's a third-party negotiation.
Well, you're right. And the way that this whole thing was set up, and we know this, that compensation does not determine agency. Compensation does not determine agency, right? So the way that it was set up, and actually it's a very interesting story. The MLS used to be a unilateral offer of sub-agency. Back in the day, back when I was selling real estate with horse and buggy, back then, and right up until about 1993, actually, everybody represented the seller as a fiduciary. Nobody represented the buyer. And not only that, you didn't have to tell the buyer that you didn't represent them. So if the buyer told you some kind of secret that would be beneficial to the seller, you actually had a duty to the seller, whether you were the listing agent or the agent that, quote, was representing the buyer, because nobody represented the buyer. And what happened in the late 80s, California passed agency disclosure law. It went across the country. And then you had people saying, well, I represent the buyer in a transaction. But the fact was, if you belonged to the MLS, that was a unilateral offer of sub-agency, and everybody represented the seller. So if I said I represented the buyer, but I really represented the seller, now you got a divided agency, right? Divided, and they could disgorge commission. So the rules of MLS were changed to accommodate disclosure. And the change went from an offer of sub-agency to an offer of compensation. And now the lawsuit is saying, wait a minute, I'm a buyer. I never really got to negotiate. And that's where that piece is.
Let's even call it this, Saul. Beyond an offer of compensation, it was actually a contract for one. It was basically saying, if you throw in the MLS that you're going to compensate a buyer's broker, whatever percentage that is, that's beyond an offer at that point. That's literally like, you have to pay it. And how many arbitrations do we see over brokers trying to get out of that? So the MLS and the rules thereof, if there's buyer's agency compensation in there, you have to pay it. And there's MLSs out there that have been accused that you have to put something. You can't put a zero.
Always. That's always great.
It has to be.
That's the offer. That's the offer side. You have to offer some type of compensation, but agency then didn't flow with it. Prior to that, agency flowed with it, right? And so, but when it changed to the offer of compensation, and you know this, nobody sits down with a buyer and says, well, I'm going to get paid by the seller, and by the way, I'm going to get paid this much, but we can negotiate that. We don't, right? Right? That's how it works.
Not much different that, if your medical insurance pays a bill on your behalf, you're not the one negotiating with the hospital or the doctor. It's a third party doing it, and whatever happens, whatever the result of that is, you're kind of out of that decision. So, in a way, a lot of buyer's agents, and man, I tell you, there's a lot of people that feel very fiercely about this. A lot of buyer's agents are upset because, wait a second, I don't want to have the conversation with my buyer of what they're going to owe me if they work with me. They've already got to come up with a down payment. They've already got to come up, like, they don't have the money. And there's a lot of reasons why sellers, by and large, were compensating agents. And it usually came down to the fact that, especially first-time home buyers, they didn't have the cash capital to do it.
What happened is the commission got got factored into the financing.
Correct.
That's
Yep.
what happened, right? And so it became accepted practice.
Mhm.
That's just the
Correct.
way that it worked, right? And now then you have the whole big piece of the industry where a lot of agents didn't buy, they got agency disclosure forms signed, but they didn't take the next step and get an actual contract signed with the buyer saying that they were representing the buyer for some kind of fee, which would be paid by the seller. So that only happened in a small number of cases if you looked at it nationwide. That's why this whole thing got certified for class action. And you know, these types of lawsuits, they can be triple damages. And if you look at the damages being requested, it's like, you know, for the last 5 years. And so if they win on the plaintiff side, it's huge. Now, the other one more thing, and that is, I have no fear that regardless of the outcome, you can create contracts around the compensation structure and we'll figure out ways to get it financed and it'll be okay, right? But it could end up costing some people a lot of money.
The one thing that I talk about with my agents all the time is where you start to put yourself in danger with this as an agent. And I'm not going to give legal advice. I don't want to make this legal advice, but I would say when you're telling your buyer just the perception you're giving, don't worry about paying me. You don't pay me. I'm paid by the seller. You know, at some point with some of these changes coming down the pipe, we perhaps are actually going to have those conversations of how we're going to be compensated, how it's the buyer's responsibility. And agents don't like that. Buyer's agency, they do not like having that conversation. And, you know, we see it. We will see a buyer's agent fiercely go after more commission from a listing broker. We're going to submit an offer, but I want X percent. They'll negotiate that with the seller, not with their own buyer. They don't want to do it.
Well, we also saw buyer brokers saying, work with me, it's free.
Yes, correct.
Right. And then that's really not the case. And so that's part of this DOJ thing was saying, wait a minute, you can't say it's free because it isn't free.
It isn't. Right? And that's dangerous language. And it puts it, and then especially if you see it that, hey, now we ran into a situation, it's a 1% payout, it's a strange deal. Now I'm going to expect you to come back and close the gap. I'm expecting to make 2.5%, 3%, whatever that number is, but you've been telling everybody that it's free. And that the seller pays me, not you. So this is where there's been kind of a big jam. And I'll tell you, when you look at the sheer size of the class over that 5 years, how many millions of people have sold a house with a realtor and had the same story over 5 years' time? We're talking, you know, millions upon millions, not 7-figure, 8-figure numbers of sellers we're dealing with.
Well, in my mind, you know, if the optimum for the plaintiff side, the amount of money would put lots of people out of business, brokerage firms, companies, and force a major change in the way business is done.
And with all these multiple class action suits that are going out there, let's face it, it's not just NAR facing it. There's a lot of large brokerages that are getting tied into this too. And I don't want to name any names. I mean, it's public record, but I'm not trying to trash on larger brokerages that are getting stuck with this or roped into it. But this is not just a NAR problem. This is
You're right, Mike. It's NAR and it's NAR MLSs. And and I'll just throw this, it's like the 5 biggest franchises in the country.
It is.
The 5 biggest franchises. And you think about, if you started to trickle this down, how many agents have done business with one of the 5 biggest franchises in the country?
Right. And what's to say that after that 5 biggest franchises are done, that they don't start trickling it down to the next level? You know, I mean, now you're looking at the top 5 brands in each state. Are you looking at, you know, I mean, this could go on and on and on. And, you know, once there's money to be made in these type of suits, you'll see attorneys, you know, aggressively pursuing these type of suits. That's why we really have to kind of watch how this is going to go in the next couple of years.
And they named, like, in the suit, if you look at it, it's like 5 major MLSs named, but they're named as co-conspirators.
Correct.
They're named as co-conspirators. So you get them, and all of a sudden you start adding more co-conspirators to this. And it can be gigantic. So it is a big thing. And there's, again, let's separate this. There's the DOJ antitrust piece where the DOJ tried to walk this back. And that was what you're seeing as the victory for NAR when it has no effect. Although if in fact the NAR won in the end, it might have some kind of a trickle effect on the other side, but they're really separate things for people to kind of keep them apart. These are not the same.
But you can definitely build some precedents that happens from one to the other. There could be some things that happen in those cases that, you know, steer things in different directions with the other ones, but they're not directly correlated. You know, and not to switch gears too hard on this, but another thing we're seeing a lot of is major TCPA violations as well, or not even just violations, alleged violations that are ending in some pretty huge settlements. Inman just reported that Keller Williams settled for, some sort of TCPA violation, $40 million. And that, from what I understand, that was before they even certified the class. That was before the class action certification even happened. Where, from what if I remember right, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I'm not going to say the brand, but a large major brand said, don't want to misspeak here, and I don't remember exactly. A large major brand, from what I understand, that did get certified under class action is probably going to have a bigger problem with TCPA coming forward right now too. Right. And from what I understand, this is kind of sweeping the real estate industry right now, and it's something we should all be very cognizant of, especially if we're running brokerages and we have shared large databases. If you're using sort of a company CRM and you're dumping hundreds of thousands or more people into this that your agents are using in their for their business, whether or not they purchased the leads or you did, whether it's family or friends, the amount of discovery it takes in order to get through, whether or not there's violations made, once those allegations are done, the attorney fees alone are crushing, especially for small firms. So, I don't want to go too deep on that either, but TCPA and call violations with the do not call, that's been running ragged.
And how long have we wondered, when is somebody going to do something about?
Now it is.
Right.
Yep. Now it is. And, and what they'll do is, they'll make a statement, like XYZ brokerage. It is not single agents. That's not the ones getting it. It's larger firms that appear to have deeper pockets. At what point are they going to start focusing on these larger brokerages and say, hey, all of your agents are illegally contacting people, and we're going to figure out how many people they're contacted. By the way, it's $500. Again, not legal advice, but look it up. It's $500 per violation for call or text if somebody's on that do not call. And then there's arguments of, hey, but they opted in to be contacted through some website, but then they got on the do not call later. And now a lot of these attorneys are pushing that, saying that's not good enough. You're supposed to be scrubbing this list in real time. So a lot of what we're seeing right now is sort of these waves of like trends that are happening in waves. And these are the two things I've been watching very closely as a broker owner of a medium-sized firm, I guess you call it, with hundreds of people. I'm watching very closely how these TCPA things are rolling out, how the buyer's agency is going to be changing, if it's going to be changing, because it could change a lot of how our industry operates.
Yep, absolutely. So key points for people to just pay attention to the litigation that's taking place. Right? Kind of pay attention to what's going on. The other thing we talked about, another headline is CoStar and Realtor.com. So you might start to see this where people are saying, wait, CoStar buy Realtor.com, and where's that going? And you're going to see a lot of speculation, a lot of people talking about it. And as I look at this, and I happened to be there at the table when Realtor.com was created, when we were very concerned about if in fact that brand got rolled out, what could take place, what couldn't take place. And there was a 1,000-page operating agreement when Realtor.com was first created and then handed over to the company that then went public at the time called Home Store. And so NAR still owned everything, and the operating company at the time, Home Store, had the license to operate Realtor.com. So now you're talking about, but then Zillow and Trulia and these companies came along, and the handcuffs that were put on Realtor.com by realtors protecting their brand didn't allow Realtor.com to function competitively. So some of these restrictions got taken off. And over time, more of these restrictions got taken off. Now, one restriction that I just do not believe could have possibly been taken off is the ability for whoever owned the website Realtor.com to sell it to somebody and to sell the name with it. That's probably locked into contract. And that doesn't say that CoStar couldn't buy the website, buy the traffic, but to utilize the name, I do not think that that's possible. If it is, somewhere along the line, the leadership of NAR really messed up, because initially when we set this all up, that name was protected. And since you know this, if you don't use the term realtor correctly and you're a realtor, you'll get a letter from NAR telling you can't use that way, right? So while there might be some kind of shift in the way that site operates, I don't think the name is going to go with it. But that's big news today.
Well, without the name, that's a big branding problem. People know the name and they automatically search, go to realtor.com. They go there intentionally. It's one of those places that they intentionally go looking for an agent or a house, right? So that branding problem, rebranding, would probably be a shot to the new purchaser, the co-star. I'm not sure that that's going to be favorable if that's the way it goes down.
And I think that if they're looking at this, if it's true, it's because nobody's really said that. If it's true that this is going on, that's one of the things that could stop it, because that brand is it's a trademark.
It is.
And when NAR allowed the website to use it, they didn't say you can use it, and by the way, you can sell it to anyone you want. There were restrictions placed on it.
And I do think that if you put this in other terms, if Zillow all of a sudden changed its name overnight and it sounded nothing like Zillow, I mean, what would that do for consumer branding, like recognition? That's a big deal. That isn't a little move. But parlaying from that topic, and you're kind of making me think about this as we go. We're seeing a lot. I mean, just a lot in the last couple of years of M&As and roll-ups. We're seeing this happening, a consolidation, both in the real estate, brokerage space, technology space, and pretty much all spaces. You're seeing such a consolidation. And, what's your feeling on that? I've got my own feelings, whether that's good or bad, whether it's going to be beneficial or not. And if you look, even in the brokerage world, there's like over 107,000 brokerages out there right now. But at the top of it, there seems to be so much M&A and merger and acquisition and roll-ups, companies that are rolling up into the top. The top 10 companies that are franchisers or at least acquisition companies, they're growing by sheer M&A, it seems right now. And
from my perspective, I think that you want competition, right? You don't want everything held by 2 or 3 entities. You really want, and you need this competition. And so to a degree, it's cost effective. It'll benefit the consumer. The prices should be able to come down with bigger firms, but that doesn't always happen. And you don't want to eliminate, in my mind, you don't want to eliminate the competition, right? And so there's a degree to which I think the growth becomes counterproductive, where the M&A becomes counterproductive.
It gets counterproductive if you want to do a startup. There's a lot of people that have created amazing startup boutique operations, and and they never had the idea of growing to thousands of agents. But as the consolidations happen and the roll-ups are happening, it's harder for people to kind of get started in those boutiques, because it used to be more fragmented. And don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of fragmentation, 107,000 brokerages. But when you look where the majority of the agents are, so many are going to the top now, to the top 10 brands. And I don't know if it's always been that way. I haven't paid attention to that except for the last 10 years or so. But it's starting to make me notice.
Well, you'd be surprised if you look at the number of people that actually belong to brokerage firms of under 10 people. That's still a big number.
It's a big deal. Yep. It seems like the middle. It's the middle going away. You're either, at that really small boutique, or you're going, ultra large. And, that 100 firm brokerage, 200 firm brokerage, seems like those are just kind of getting, it's harder for them to operate these days.
Yep, exactly. Well, so I was having a conversation with my family just the other day about school, without getting political, but school and school choice, the idea of school choice. Now, what's the benefit of school choice? Well, in my mind, the benefit of school choice is competition. Because if you could take your kid wherever you wanted, then there'd be more competition. Schools would have to. The same thing with portals or with social media. If you could take your whole audience from Facebook over to a new social media platform, then it would make the existing social media platforms more responsive to the desires of the people who are aggregating there. And so if there's restrictions that prevent this, and so in my mind, though, you want a little bit more competition, and as you get too much consolidation, you start to lose some of the benefits of that.
I tend to agree with that. And another thing we're seeing too that I'm, really been paying attention to is, the future and destiny of some of the large iBuyer companies in the space. And if you noticed, the market shift probably hit them really hard too, because think about it, they were holding so much inventory that they bought, in the peak of the market, and they bought for really high prices. The market shifted, and we talked about this a year ago, right on this webinar, talking about, do we think it's going to be, a crash of any kind? And it wasn't. It was not a crash. We didn't see home sale prices crash. It was more of a drought where there was just no opportunity, or less opportunity, a way less desirable amount of opportunity for either buyer or seller. And I think you probably agree, in most markets, there was more of a slow, steady decline in the first half of the year. In the second half, the decline doubled in digits. It was in Minnesota, in my state, month over month, when you compare December of 21 compared to December of 22, there was a 44% difference in the number of homes sold just from that month. So it was like the first half was slow and steady. second half kind of fell off a cliff, and then it started to kind of stabilize now. But if you're looking at some of these, large iBuyer companies, they were caught holding a lot of inventory.
Yeah.
While this was going on.
Yep. Well, and so in my mind too, the idea of companies coming in and buying to turn them and flip them, that never was the right model. The right model is you come in and buy them and hold on to them for some period of time. And so there are still major Wall Street type firms that are doing that are buying, but their objective isn't to buy them and turn them right away. If they see it as a good investment, they'll buy it and they'll hold it, right? So something else that's kind of interesting is the markets that appreciated the most are the markets where you're seeing the most pullback.
Of course. Yep.
Right.
Yep,
Which makes sense.
Makes sense. But, back to the iBuyers, I still think we're seeing them still buying. They're still out there buying. A lot of what their, buying strategy is changing. The offers are changing, of course. And I still think every single day, we're still seeing opportunity that agents are running into opportunities saying this iBuyer thing would actually work for my client. It'd be really good for my client. So I think there's still going to be a space for them. I don't think they're going away. But they are retooling the way that they're purchasing properties and how they're approaching it, I think.
I still see it in my market on television every night.
Yep.
I see a broker, I recognize him every night. I see him, he's running ads and he's saying, I'll buy your house.
Right.
Well, he's an iBuyer, I'll buy your house. Well,
right.
When I was selling, again, back in the horse and buggy days, when I was selling real estate, there was one guy in town that actually did that. He would list your house and he would buy it. And he was kind of like, there's only one guy in town that did this. But that's what he became known for, and it gave his agents another tool, right? So the capital, it gives your agents another tool, another offering, another way to market. And so I agree with you, it's not going away.
It's not going away, but I think it actually helps create niches now too, because one thing I was really looking at, speaking of consolidation and some of the things we just mentioned, if you look where the market went for agents, I think the median number of homes sold per agent in the country in 2021, if I remember, it was 12. I think half the agents out there sold less than 12 and half sold more than 12. Well, I don't think the numbers are out for 2022 yet, but I know by mid-year that was 92% of every agent in the country sold 3 homes or less. So there was a drastic change. And even though there was somewhat of a change in number of homes sold total, what we saw, there was a consolidation to the top. The agents doing business were actually doing a lot of times more business. And I think what happened is people got much more conscious of which agent they wanted to go with. And I explain it to my agents this way. You see about 3 different techniques or 3 different strengths that people try to sell to, because we know that the first transaction someone has with you isn't the home, it's you. They want to, you have to sell them the idea of working with me, right? The agent. And most people try to sell to their personality. They're likable. If I'm likable and the people trust me, they want to work with me because they like who I am, they feel good about it. About 5% beyond that, we'll try to sell to education. They try to sell to a higher level of knowledge that they can give to provide that buyer about the process, about things they're not thinking about home construction, you name it, right? I'm getting something from Saul that I'm not getting something from other agents I talk to. I'm going to work with Saul. And basically, if someone is so close in perceived skill set and value, who are they going to go with? The person they know better or like better, right? So if you have something more like the education you're giving has much more perceived value, you likely are going to get that deal. And then third, back to the iBuyer thing and other products, and probably the most powerful thing people sell to you is products and services that the consumer can't seem to find easy without that agent or don't understand without that agent. So if you have niche products, and we saw this with iBuyers, we saw it with companies like Knock and HomeSwap. You see it like with some of these companies like Curbio. We have an in-house product of all of these, like Curbio. They're going to go in and improve the house before you put it on the market, make it more sale ready, make it sell faster, right? You see it in terms of credit repair, home staging, you name it. There's products and services that if you really understand those products and services, you can educate buyers or sellers well about them, and you're a likable person, man, you're going to crush it out there. But
you're at. So NAR does this study, a profile of home buyers and sellers. What was the number? Like 88% of people get it. That's referral business.
Yeah,
right?
So
and it's repeat. Right?
It is. So the repeat and referral, I found this fascinating in 2021 because they haven't got 22 out yet. But 2021, 29% of all sellers was repeat, right? So they found their agent because they've already worked with them, 29%. But the referral business accounted for 39%, which is a total of 70% came from a relationship. Sellers. Conversely, buyers, that was 60%. So of course with sellers, that's my asset. I want to make sure I know exactly who I'm working with. right? But my point is there's sort of this thing going on of consolidation that an order taker, you go into a restaurant, you order a plate of food, they give you exactly what you order. You know, in 2020 and 21, you could practically get away with that. They want availability. How fast can you show me a house? Can you get the door open for me? Can you write a contract? Now they're looking for a perceived higher value and somebody that can walk them through these strategies, right?
So we
consolidation like that.
Well, so we suffered the same kinds of things in the 80s, right? With the market turn. And so my real estate company, and I had an active brokerage firm, and our byline for our company was a real estate services and education company.
Yep.
Right. So it was the name of our company, a real estate services and education company. And that was a great differentiator because we believed that an educated buyer or an educated seller was a better client. And so we did things to educate them. I actually got into and got licensed to sell securities. I was a general securities broker and a principal. I became a certified financial planner and bought a tax business. And I did all these things so we could offer these different services.
Products and services.
Right? And so
even if they don't like you as much, they're going to go with you because you got what they can't get elsewhere.
Well, that's the other thing. Once they get where you've got all the, it's kind of like when you go to your bank and you set up with the bank and you have them paying all your bills, even if you don't like the bank, you're kind of hard pressed to move, right? Because everything is there and they've got record of everything. So we used to always say too, that what consumers are looking for, and this is what you need to deliver, the consumer preferences: speed, convenience, choice, value added, quality, service. People want discounts. You don't need to give it. You got to give them something, and information. So what do you do to do things faster for people? People pay more if you can do it faster. What do you do to make it convenient for them?
Right.
People will pay more.
Or to remove a pain point. You know, I mean, if you're removing a pain point, what is that worth to somebody that's struggling for 2 months to get their home sale, like their home ready for sale, on the weekends, trying to paint, trying to, you know, fix things up. They're exhausted. If somebody came in and took care of that project for them, would that not be a huge benefit? And if you could systematize that in your business, you know, the same thing with
that's your education piece, right? That's
education, product, services, all that. Yeah.
Teach them about all the availability of services, and then you can make the referral, you can make the connection, and you can make it easier for them, more convenient for them. The sale will go down faster. And so those are driving forces, and it's a value add because, and we know that realtors do this all the time. You always provide more service than you get paid for, but you don't typically brag about it. So so what is value added? It's giving more than people expect. And so what are those things that you can do?
Yep. And I think too, when you really look at it, you know, the kind of separating yourself from the sea of sameness, when everybody out there sounds the same, acts the same, there's no perceived difference between working with agent A, B, or C. Now this is where the consolidation is going to the top, where you're seeing the top 3% or 4% getting the lion's share of the business. And we talked about this a year ago, that we thought this is what's going to happen. And certainly it happened, right? And then you look at it like, wait a second, I thought I just had to be likable, responsive, you know, super fast at answering the phone. That's all I had to do. It's not. Now you have to solve these pain points, have clear strategy, tell them things and show them things that they're not finding elsewhere. That's what the winning lottery ticket is. So Saul, we do have a question that popped up here. Okay, do you have a recommended marketing strategy for a broker agent who recently moved to a large city or state? I've formerly done marketing via newspapers, which worked very successful in my small town. Thanks. Well, I'll take a crack at that question too. I don't know if you want to start, Saul, but I've got my answer.
Go ahead.
So first off, when nobody knows you, it's always really good if you're trying to drive production. Hopefully you got some money set aside to start spending on some lead generation. That's going to be one faster way to get going, like creating opportunity because you're not known. If I'm looking for a marketing strategy though, I'm going to go really deep on what makes me different. You know, so having a clear, concise message of why it's different working with me than somebody else. And there's a difference between a marketing and an advertising strategy, I think too. There's a difference between paid advertising versus, you know, marketing you're putting out there organically. So I would look at what's my advertising strategy, my marketing strategy, my calling strategy, my mailing strategy, my social media strategy, like what's all my strategies. But I think when you're brand new in town and don't have that proof of concept, I think, you know, positioning yourself of why it's different to work with you and getting that clear, concise message and identifying who your target really is. Which type of buyers and sellers are you really going to service? Who's going to connect with that message? What niches are you going to fill and pain points are you going to remove? Getting very clear on that is probably where you're going to start off. And then, you know, to fast track, you know, when you're talking about, your own personal production, I always take a look if I'm brand new in a market, where am I focusing that you have hand raisers, like people that are self-identifying they're currently in the market. Open houses, and by the way, speaking of numbers from NAR, and open houses, I want to say were 4 to 5% in 2021 of where somebody met their agent. The number of homes sold in 2021, that would equate to about 390,000 people found their home or found their agent at an open house. They're there raising their hands saying, I'm in the market. Same thing with business and expireds and withdrawn canceled properties. So I would look for places that I can find people that are waving their hands saying, I'm in the market. That's a sniper approach versus blanketing with marketing everywhere, hoping to pick somebody up in a machine gun approach. I think you need both, but I do think you need a pretty active, self-identifying hand raiser crowd that you can actively reach out to, proactively, approach, where your marketing strategy is going to be more by your message. You're going to be driving people in. I also love YouTube. YouTube is a how-to system, right? I mean, people are in there typing in, how do I sell a house? How do I buy a house? How do I fix my credit? The informational stuff, again, educating people. People on YouTube and Google searching for information.
So you're back to building a customer base. If you're new in an area, you don't have a customer base. So where do you go to find them? If you got a lot of money, you can do advertising and marketing. But to me, it gets back to being able to touch people. So you have to go out and do the things you need to do to meet people. Go out and meet people that meet people who influence people, and talk to those kinds of, talk to tax preparers, talk to attorneys, right? So it's hands-on. And so real estate's kind of this Me Too business. Most people do the same kinds of things. And you're right. How do you differentiate yourself? So you create a menu of services. You go back and you look at take my last 6 transactions. What did I do when I helped them locate property? When I educated them, I helped them market the property, right? These different phases of a transaction. Go through your last 6 transactions and just write down every single thing you did. And then you can develop a story or a narrative, and then you tell that to everybody you run into. The next thing is to go out and find them. You find them in an open house, or you find them in a luncheon, or you join some club where people come every day or every week or every month. But you have to remember, real estate's a people business.
It's context work.
You got to reach
context work. I mean, you got to roll your sleeves up and get a little rough in contact. I mean, you can't avoid the phone in the context, and it's also a context sport in context of you have to reach out and talk to people. I do think, and you're right, when you're starting in a new market, unless you have money, you're gonna have to figure out the cheaper ways to do things. I love YouTube for building a YouTube channel and then providing the how-to content and driving people to that page. You can drive people there like crazy if that's your intent. Open houses, pretty much free. So those free lead sources, and as you're saying, Saul, you're building an SOI from scratch. It's like you're building your own personal militia. Some people are going to go out there and find you business. You have to find them, win them over, educate them, and then motivate them to go out and help you. And having a clear, different value proposition than everybody else, rather than just being a likable person, that's going to be probably the key to get things done faster, I'd say.
Well, and you mentioned that the YouTube channel, and that goes back to one of the ways that you build trust and confidence. And that's what you want. You want trust and confidence. You can meet them and be a nice person, but then you want to build trust and confidence. And one of the ways to build trust and confidence is to demonstrate expertise. And a great way to do that is to build a YouTube channel. And now what you're doing is you're demonstrating expertise. That builds trust and confidence, and people feel more comfortable with you than just because they like you, but they feel comfortable with your knowledge. And that's another positive. And some of the social media like YouTube will allow you to do that, right? In a very inexpensive way.
Another reason I think it's really powerful, and it is because with the YouTube channel, what you're able to do is you're able to show the how-tos. You can build your credibility, you can build your visibility, and you can do it very cheaply. And you can even track what's working. You can track what videos are getting the most views. You can analyze why they are. You can double down on that. And as you start building an advertising strategy you can build custom audiences off the content you're building and who's been visiting you, right? So there's a lot you can do with YouTube. And I think, at the end of the day, what people do is they kind of struggle to figure out how to make it work. What pieces fit together? Just seeing a video, that could be enough. Well, you're probably gonna have to attach it to a landing page. Probably gonna have to attach it to some sort of lead capture system, some call to action where people are gonna engage with it. You can learn those things. I'd also say another tip, if you're starting out brand new in an area, it's a great idea to join up with a broker or a team, even if you are a broker for a while, to start leveraging some of their tools too. That way you're not starting completely from scratch. if I'm an agent moving into a market, I want to do every open house. Instead of sitting in the office, I'd rather sit in open houses 3 or 4 days a week, including weekends, and do my work from there. You're going to have hundreds of people throughout the year you're going to meet that are coming in. And then again, that's free. And while you're there doing your other work, lead generating or things that move the needle in your business, you're waiting for someone to walk in. I mean, literally, you couldn't ask for a better situation. But if you don't have the inventory, you can't do it. Another reason, join up with somebody for a while that's got the inventory and the things you can leverage to get yourself off the ground.
Another thing you might do is work expired listings.
Yes.
So, expired listings, and this is, it's not just any expired listing, but you want to become, and this is back to geographical farming or geographical. I want to know every house in a particular geographic area. I want to know which houses are on the market, how long they've been on the market, when they, not just I'm sending out to expireds, right? I want to become known as the person that knows all about those properties, why they didn't sell. Because if you can tell an expired listing why their property didn't sell, you got a good chance of getting that listing.
Absolutely. And again, we're talking about people that have self-identified, I'm in the market, right? And, I love doing things and putting systems behind it. And again, I want to stand out and have a value proposition. So what if you built yourself a system in expireds that you had an actual brand behind it? What if it was more like, hey, I've got a second chance home gallery, or a failure to launch system for the homes that were on the market that failed to launch, that we're going to analyze and diagnose why it failed to launch. Then I'm going to show you how we're going to do it and get your goal accomplished. It's better than I'm just going to sell your house because someone else failed to, or are you still in the market? Now let's talk about my system that specializes especially in failure to launch properties. And I'm not saying you have to use my words, but come up with a system that sounds different, looks different than everybody else. That's going to be helpful. I think too. Yeah.
And then the more you know about that area, the more confident people will be in your knowledge and expertise. That builds trust and confidence. And that's what you're looking for. And that's what you want to build over your entire real estate career, right? Is trust and confidence, because that's what brings the referrals.
And I looked at it too. I like to go out to eat a lot. I hate to cook myself. And my fiance is a great cook, but I think she likes to just go out and eat and let somebody else take care of it, right? So we go out to eat a lot. When I go to a restaurant and they give me a menu and they say, what would you like? And if I order whatever that food is, it comes out exactly how I ordered it. If I ordered the steak medium rare, it's going to come out medium rare most of the time if they did a good job. However, there's a couple of restaurants I go to, I don't even look at the menu. They're so good at what they do there. They basically tell me what experience that I should want based on whether I like shrimp or seafood or beef or chicken. They're going to basically put together this meal for me and tell me why I should want it, what I should pair with it, which wine's going to be the best with it. And every single time I've tested them, whether I can pick something better than theirs. Well, first off, I can't read it's in it's a French restaurant. I can't understand anything I'm reading. So I have to rely on them. But my point is, I want the same experience for anybody I work with in real estate. I would rather help them craft the vision rather than just them telling me the vision is, because let's face it, most of the time they don't really know.
Yeah.
They really don't know. So the difference between being high level, consultative, a guide, an educator, and an order taker, we're seeing that the order takers are struggling more than ever because there's so many of them, there's no differential. So I think that's why this is so important to talk about.
Well, and so what's happened is since 2012 or so, people have gotten spoiled. And that is that if you got a listing, it was going to sell. Mm-hmm. And really what made you a differentiator is if you could get the offer accepted, if you could find it before, and that's all it took.
Yep.
Because it got sold. But that's not the way it is now. And that's not going to be the way it is for a while. So people have to go back to tried and true ways of developing that business. And it's more than just finding the property and being the first one there. It's do the things you're talking about.
Way more. And it's a skill set that you have to sharpen your axe. A lot of agents too, I'll ask them, I'll figure it out. They're really not working that much on the things that move the needle in their business. They'll stay busy. They're going to spend 2.5 hours, on Canva creating a marketing piece. But that's not what's going to necessarily move the needle in your business. What moves the needle in your business? It's going to be things like prospecting, lead follow-up, lead generation, sitting in open houses, buyer's appointments, buyer's consultations, how many listing appointments you can go on this week. These things actually make you money. It's what generates revenue, right? So when you think about it, you get in these situations only a certain number of times, especially if you're slow at the moment. Why not be ready for it? Imagine going on to the big game and you haven't even practiced or trained yourself for it. You get in the situation, you're like, oh, I kind of blew that one. And it might be a month before I get in the next situation again. So practice doesn't make perfect, but it makes much better. and having somebody that you can work with and practice with, role play partners, accountability partners. And we've had a few people ask the question of, what if I'm brand new in an area or market? Great. Hook up with somebody that's got some leverage, including people you can work with, learn from, talk to, spend time educating yourself. The last thing you want is having limited opportunity and not being confident in those moments and relying only on your personality or how fast you can answer a phone and how many times that you don't miss the phone call. I see agents think that's their only value. Well, I call people back very quickly and I really miss a phone call. But what value are you actually bringing to the transaction other than being a service provider and a door opener? I'm not trying to say that to shame anybody. I just want to bring awareness to this.
Yeah.
When you actually have real value to bring, that's a different story.
So and I've had to write this down. Contact with people creates opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Contacts create contracts. And what I used to say to people is you think you're in a slump and we got good times and bad. You're in a slump. Here's what you do. Go out and meet more people.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty simple. Just force yourself. Go out and meet more. There's a lot of things you can do to occupy your time, but go out and meet more people. And I guarantee you at the end of the year, if you make every effort to go out and meet more people, you're going to do more business.
Or even this simple, and not thinking about everybody just in a new market, but how about you've been in the market, you have a book of business, and either you're going with the market slows down, you slow down, or you've learned to generate business in a way that you move independently of the market. Your systems are dialed into a point, and your value proposition is dialed into a point that you really move independent of the market. That's really where you want to be. And one of the things I see with agents, if the biggest bucket that you have that you're pulling deals from in the whole country is your repeat and referral business, and your past clients who've worked with you, it's already proof of concept. They've worked with you, they know you, they like you. That is probably your number one lead source. I will tell you, I've talked to hundreds, if not thousands of agents that don't have an actual past client follow-up plan. They're relying on feeling motivated to follow up, remembering to, when something triggers that memory. The reality is you can leveraging technology to put action plans together to remind you it's time to call somebody, especially that first year after they bought or sold. You should be calling on specific times, saying specific things. Again, it's free. This is not something that's going to cost you money, but you've got to connect the action plan to that person in your CRM and make the call.
Well, and it's as simple as asking for the business. You have to ask for the business. So we used to use this phrase all the time, and people do I have to ask that? Yeah, you have to ask it. Have I done everything I can to earn your referral business? Have I done everything I can to earn your referral business? Ask it often, because you never know. But that's what people don't do. They don't ask for it. We tell them all the time, right? You got to ask for the order, but they don't ask for the order unless they're ready to buy right now. You got to ask for the order constantly.
But I do think there's you can get more comfortable with how you ask based on how you're asking it. And I would say something as simple as this. When you're calling somebody, and one of the reasons that I believe this, if you look at some of the years that you look at NAR's reporting and the profile of that home buyer and seller, you'll find that sellers, like the biggest, and I've seen this year after year, the biggest bucket of sellers that try to refer you it's like 20-something% of sellers try to refer you not once, but 4 times. How many people are getting 4 referrals from a seller? Probably none of you. And the reason why, we're not even educating our sellers how to refer us or our buyers. So we are doing those calls, those follow-up calls, and you're having conversations. When it swings around to how's your business going, how's the year going for you, you're always going to be so grateful for them asking the question. Thank you for caring. And by the way, if you know anybody that's going to be buying or selling, I don't want to make it hard on you. All I really want you to do, instead of giving them my business card, which is going to go in the garbage anyway, just put me on a text with them and say, Mike, meet so-and-so. I will take it from there. I don't want you to work hard or stress about it, but I so appreciate your business, and that's how my business stays in business. So thank you. That simple, recommendation of teaching them how to refer is going to drastically change the results of them thinking they can just give a business card of yours and that's a referral.
Yep. And I'll tell you what, you do this long enough. I was a productive broker. So I had a small office back, but everybody had small offices back at the time. And I had like 20 agents, and I was in production. And over my career, I had like 4 people who I referred to as career-making clients. Mm-hmm. That every once in a while, you get a client that becomes a client that actually makes your career for you, that mm-hmm. brings you so much business that if that was the only lead generator you had, you would do great by them. Career-making clients, and they're out there.
What if you had 10? What if you had 10 of those, right?
Yeah.
And quite honestly, the reason I keep on bringing this, and I'm a big lead gen guy. It's 14 to 17% of every transaction in 2021 happened because of an online website for lead generation. But your biggest group of people, the most transactional buyers you're going to get, that are you're going to leverage the trust you have with the referrer, they like you, and therefore the referee, they think you must be okay. I trust this person and they're going to refer me. It's the best type of deal to work with for most people. But here's my point. We fail to follow up so badly, especially with our past clients. I mean, they're still sphere of influence. They know you, they have a relationship with you, they like and trust you. That's SOI. So but the reality is, like 80+% say that they would work with you again as an agent, and about 12% do. And that's been a statistic that's been out there since day one. And that's not on us, or that's not on them, that's on us. Half the time they forget who even worked with them when they bought that house 5 years ago. That is the easiest referrals you're going to get. And we drop the ball, because we're looking for somebody that's ready tomorrow to buy a house. If you're thinking like a business owner, you're thinking about how am I going to cheaply and effectively, efficiently create opportunity to grow and scale every year. And we miss that one so drastically.
Yeah, I'll tell you the best client, and by best, I mean the one that brought me the most business over my career, came from a call in the office early in the morning, somebody I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you don't know where they're coming from. I would go into the office when I first started selling real estate before anybody else did. I would get there early. I would make the coffee. I would dump I would just do stuff to be in the office in case the phone rang. And if the phone rang, I would be the one that got the call because I was the only one in the office.
Right.
And I got a call one morning, and this person went out and bought several properties from me and then turned me on to, it just so happened this person owned factories and had people that dealt with her, and her clients owned shopping centers. And the trust that I built through that, basically it was like an incoming cold call, what turned out to be the best. So you don't know where they're coming from.
You don't. And we judge it by what's the price of the house they're calling and what do they want to see? Are they approved to the lender yet? Are you wasting my time? It's all these, should I actually get off my butt and work? I got a similar story, Saul, where I was managing a team at the time. I think we had 8 agents. And a lead came in. It was a sign call lead, which I love sign call leads. By the way, 5% of all transactions that happened last year were sign calls. Again, we're talking 300,000 to 400,000 yard signs. I mean sign calls. I mean listing signs in the front yard. And what I want to point out about this, a sign call came in. It was on a property for only $35,000. Back in the REO days, we had a very distressed property, 35 grand. And I don't care what market you're in. That's a low sale price. So the agent that took the call complained to me, I don't want to take it. I don't want to go meet this person. I don't think they're even real. It's $35,000. They refused. So I said, you know what? Even though I'm the manager of the team, I'll go take it. I'm going to show you guys what to do in this situation. I went out there, met the person, and they were fresh in the country. They barely spoke English well enough to communicate well with me. So we're texting each other, and I finally figured out she was talking about rental. And I said, wait a second, this ain't for sale. It's for sale. It's not a rental. No. I want to buy it and rent it out. So I said, okay, how do you want to structure this? You're brand new here. Do you have, are you mortgaging it? You cash? She whips out a bank statement with $1.5 million. That week, we went and purchased, I want to say 13 properties, including a primary residence for her. She was brand new here. She refilled that thing. And I think there was like a total of 42 transactions that happened between her transactions and like 13, I think we got a referral from her. From just going into that one appointment with a mindset of, I'm going to explore this. I'm going to come from a place of contribution. I want to help this woman. How can we work together? Rather than judging it by, are you wasting my time?
Yep.
And I'll tell you that one flip in my mindset has made me so much, more productive in my career. I would have sold half the homes, that I've done if I was judging everybody, whether or not they're wasting my time. I will explore the opportunity. Not everything's going to work out, but a lot more does when you have that mindset. So I just want to throw that out there too.
Yeah, no, it's a great, and it's a very important lesson. You don't know where the business is coming from.
You don't,
right?
You don't. And, I'm not saying you should work with somebody for, 6 months that refuses to talk to a lender. And like, there's a time that you have to figure out, okay, this might not work out, but approach every situation from curiosity rather than judgment, and figure out whether or not as you build trust and rapport with somebody, will they start to actually move forward in the right way you need them to. But if you judge it too soon or too soon and prematurely, you're going to find a lot of lost opportunity.
Yeah, and that's what this last market over the last 10 years has done. It's allowed people to get into that mindset, right? Which is the
Agreed.
wrong mindset.
Agreed. You know what? I don't know how we did this, Saul, but it seems like we've been talking 10 minutes and we went through the whole hour here. We're kind of at time.
Oh.
Let's see if anybody has any last minute questions, I guess. Anyone? Between Saul and I, we never shut up. So, you can't get a word in edgewise with us. So any last questions? Type them in. I think we exhausted them. Nobody has.
Yeah, I think we did. We just wore them out. Well, Mike, it's been great to chat with you again, and I'm sure we'll chat again soon, huh?
We will. And Autumn, I think you asked a question. What would you recommend for brand new upcoming agent in a new area? For brand new upcoming agent, also in a new state. So same advice that we gave before. Clearly define your value proposition. Make sure you can articulate it. Focus on the cheapest leads you can get. Open houses, FSBOs, expireds. If you don't have a network, that's okay. Focus your time on building your network. Even if you do have an SOI, go through that. Saul brought up like your real ambassadors, your lifetime, once in a lifetime clients. Build more of them. Like your job, especially you're new, is go meet people. In the interim, make sure you're getting hand raisers, open houses, FSBOs, expireds, referrals from other agents. By the way, you'd be surprised if you reach out to agents that were an hour away from your marketplace that would refer. I like numbers. I'll tell you again, 5% of every transaction that happened in 2021, agent referral, either across the country or across the state, or, sometimes it's just, I don't want to deal with this buyer. I'll give it to you. So, those free sources are amazing as a new agent.
Let me throw one more thing in there about agents, and that is a lot of people fail in the real estate business. So it's very important how you treat other agents, because those people could end up being clients, or they could end up referring business to you.
One girl I coached, she'd go to every seminar and every conference across the country. I think she did like 53 transactions in a year from agent referral. She built those relationships. We know referrals. We do this for a living. One of the agents in my office years ago was struggling. I had him do one mailing to outstate. Like we live in the cities, the Twin Cities of Minnesota. So he did an outstate mailing. First mailing, got 2 transactions out of that mailing. And it was to agents saying, hey, I'm your Twin Cities guy. If you have anybody I think maybe he offered extra 5% in referral fee than what the normal standard was, so he had sort of a USP, unique selling proposition behind that. But my point is, soon as he did that, got the 2 transactions, he quit, never did it again. So you got to, once you find something, you got to stay on it. But explore, be creative, explore under every rock, go meet more people, focus on the people that are ready right now in terms of those open houses and whatnot. All right. Do you have a favorite playbook, script, resources? That would take a long time, Autumn. If you find me on Facebook, maybe we can have a conversation about that. Mike Bernier, we definitely talk. Also born in St. Paul. Hit me up. So I will just type my name in here. You just can't see it. I'll be happy to talk with you about that offline. Ladies and gents, I think we're about out of time right now. We'll catch you on the next one.